Related to that is the Anarchist, who also originally called themselves Socialist. The term Anarchist was actually, I think, coined by one of them, Proudhon, who's mentioned here. If he didn't coin it, he at least was one of the first to use it. But their major objection, with the Marxist socialist was that they felt that all of the Marxist approaches were a little bit too centralized, too authoritarian, too top-down. They relied too much on like a small group of people kind of running things instead of trying to organize the working class and teach working class people to organize themselves, right? To do a very bottom-up sort of organizing. So the anarchists were very critical of all that, and they said, like, you have to be bottom-up, and that means not worrying about the state. That means the state and capitalism, because they've merged, is part of the problem, and we can't rely on state things such as electoralism in order to get the gains we want. We have to organize our communities. So you had a few different types of anarchism that came up too. You had the mutualist under Proudhon, who had a little bit more of a kind of socialist market sort of attitude. It was like an interesting market way of communities through workers' unions and stuff would make trade deals with each other and all, right? And that was how you got around the state and capitalism. Your communities and workers just kind of directly made agreements with each other. You also had the collectivists with Bakunin, who advocated equality. That was a very important thing: political and economic equality for everyone, and collective ownership of the means of production. Also emphasizing radical trade unions and workers. And eventually those two ideas kind of evolved into what you would determine today as an anarcho-communist and anarcho-syndicalist. So the anarcho-communists share a lot of kind of the end goals of Marxism, right? That communist sort of thing, but without forming a state, right? Like you kind of bypass that and go straight to kind of your communist, not straight to, but you organize from the bottom up for it. And your syndicalists take a very working class approach, that you go through trade unions and organizing workers.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand too that Bakunin and Proudhon were contemporaries of Marx, right? They debated each other in real life. This split happened immediately. And one of my favorite things, Proudhon actually coined libertarian.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So if you ever meet a right-wing libertarian in the United States, ask them if they did. Oh, so you must like Proudhon, and they'll usually be confused. And then you can tell them that they should read his piece, "What Is Property," because he concludes that it's theft. Right. So the founder, the coiner of the term libertarian, which in the United States is a very far right-wing extremist meaning, was actually a bottom left socialist. And it's just been bastardized here like many other things in the United States.
Co-opted, yeah. So I even put that in there under the mutualist thing. I should have read this instead of riffing on it, but replacing the state with a federation of free communities. That was what Proudhon was advocating. That were organized by workers' councils and cooperatives that interacted and cooperated with each other via market trades. And Proudhon, in his "What Is Property" essay, coined the phrase "property is theft." He was criticizing capitalist private property that owned things for investment purposes. But that property is theft is a really big point in history. And of course, when right-wing folks took the term libertarian, like the Libertarian Party, they of course, property is a very important aspect of their beliefs, so they can't have property as theft, so it morphed into taxes are theft. So that's kind of where that came from.
They dropped they dropped Proudhon's opposition to hierarchy and just transformed it into opposition to the state.
Right, exactly. So